Hey, it's Quadix here. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe, comment Q or any other comments you may have. The link to the Discord and my Instagram will be in the description. Check them out. When this video gets to 500 likes, I'll upload the next part. Roll the intro. He made a shadow clone who took up a guard beside a curious Hashirama. Just be ready for when it happens. If he wasn't bound, Hashirama would have given a thumbs up with a large grin. Seeing he was bound, he just grinned, not even knowing what Naruto was talking about. Will do! With that, Naruto turned his sights onto the jackpot, Orochimaru. Without any further thought, he flash stepped, barreling his fist right into Orochimaru's jaw. Orochimaru was thoroughly enjoying himself. He had sent the Shodai to dispose of the meddlesome Uzumaki, while he teamed up with Tobirama to take Hiruzen down. It was actually quite amusing to hear the legendary water user curse at him while attacking his own successor. He was about to use an opening Tobirama had created to stab his sensei with the famed sword of Kusanagi when he was suddenly punched in the face so hard he swore his tooth might have loosened a bit. He went flying back through, though he managed flip in the air and landed gracefully on his feet. He looked up and grit his teeth in annoyance. Naruto was standing right before him, kunai held in reverse grip and wind chakra flowing through them. How are you standing before me? You should have been killed by the Shodai. Naruto smirked. I don't see why you need to know. He then dispersed the flash, disappeared in a flash step, and Orochimaru blocked the swipe at his throat at the last second. Both settled in a furious bout of taijutsu, each trying to overpower the other. Orochimaru knew not to underestimate Naruto in any way, while Naruto knew that he needed to end this quickly as possible. He delivered a series of punches that were blocked, but pushed Orochimaru back enough for Naruto to execute a move of his own. He front flipped with leg split at 180-degree angle. Orochimaru blocked the first leg with both of his hands, but the second leg came crashing down on his head, painfully causing him to kiss the roof. Orochimaru groaned as he rubbed his head to quell the pain. If he hadn't been suffering blows like that from Tsunade a long time ago, he would have been seeing stars. While Naruto did have Tsunade's monstrous strength, the speed he used to augment his attacks made them no less formidable. His eyes opened wide in alarm as he suddenly saw that Naruto was nowhere in sight. All of a sudden, he was forced to wave in between four shadow clones that had suddenly appeared from nowhere. One swipe of his sword took care of the first. The second was kicked out of existence. The third managed to poke a pressure point in his arms that made it go numb, but he was managed as well. The last one attempted an upward slash, only to see that he would be stabbed before he could slash the Sannin. So using his slower perception, he let go of the Hiraishin kunai just as he was stabbed in the back. It was almost like slow motion for Orochimaru as he watched the kunai spin forward. His own free hand reached up in slow motion to grab the kunai before it was too late. Oh, too late. Naruto suddenly appeared in midair in perfect position, grasping the kunai by its handle and delivering a direct blazing palm thrust into Orochimaru's back. The attack was way too fast for Orochimaru to counter and was therefore bashed onto the roof once again. Naruto flashed to the kunai a few meters away. As Orochimaru slowly recovered from the attack, Naruto took a glance to see how Gigi was doing. Not good. He will have to be extremely quick. Hiruzen was heavily panting. He was running low on chakra, and even Tobirama could see that. So exhausted he was that, coupled with his old age, he was starting to get dizzy. He tripped on one of the uprooted tiles and fell back, simply unable to continue anymore. He could do nothing but watch as Tobirama picked up a stray kunai and rushed towards him. Hiruzen closed his eyes as he waited for the end. Rather sad that he would die by his sensei's hands rather than an enemy's. For all his speed, it seemed Naruto was a bit late. Sorry Naruto, but this is the end. Seconds passed, and Hiruzen was confused. He should have been stabbed in the heart by now by his sensei. Opening one eye, he saw that Tobirama's hand had stopped in an inch from his heart. Tobirama himself was looking surprised as to what just happened. He slowly reeled back, clenching and opening his fist to confirm for himself it was really happening. It seems that I have gained back the control of my body, he analyzed before looking over to where his brother was. A clone over there was pressing a hand to Hashirama's back, releasing some sort of paralyzing seal. Hashirama grinned as he shot up on his feet, testing the movement of his limbs. So this is what he was talking about. I have to say, I never predicted this. Tobirama turned back to see just what had happened, that they were out of Orochimaru's control, only to see a deep gash in Orochimaru's right side, with blood flowing from it like waterfall. The Sannin was pressing the wound as tight as he could to slow the blood flow. Just a second later, his mouth opened widely and another Orochimaru crawled out of it, without any injuries. He had a snarl on his face, but the damage was already done. I can't believe you just did that. Naruto just grinned at his victory. Looks like you weren't fast enough. What just happened there? Tobirama questioned with authority. Naruto grinned as he recounted what happened moments before. 30 seconds back, Orochimaru stood up as he leveled a death glare at Naruto. The boy had landed way too many hits. There was no doubt that he was skilled and talented, but this was frankly ridiculous. Even he couldn't match Sarutobi Sensei when he was that young, but then again, he didn't know the Hiraishin. He teleported to the kunai in the air. I should never have let my guard down after dismissing those clones. Your efforts are admirable, he rasped out, but ultimately useless. This is a jutsu that not even the Yondaime could have found that weakness to. All you're trying to do is delay the inevitable. He never got to the chance to finish his monologue as Naruto suddenly appeared in front of him. He placed one hand on his stomach, the right while the other holding the kunai, went right into Orochimaru's side, drawing a surprised grunt from the man. One moment he was standing in front of Orochimaru, the next instant, he was bearing a kunai into him. Hiraishin no jutsu. He must have marked me in the attack, Orochimaru thought as he released a breath in pain as the kunai went deeper. Even the Yondaime. Please, Naruto mocked. He would have ended this fight ages ago. Orochimaru felt a burst of chakra down where Naruto's palm was and looked down, his face morphing into horror as he realized what had happened. A contract seal? What are you? Before he could finish his sentence, Naruto slashed the kunai sideways, right out of the screaming Sanni's body and drawing a huge amount of blood, along with some chunks as well. He then flashed back before Orochimaru could retaliate. Flashback over. Naruto grinned as he neared the end of his explanation. Gigi told me that you summoned the Kages from the dead. The fact was further cemented when I learned the full name of this jutsu. Kuchiyoso Edo Tensei is a jutsu that puts the summoned soul in a contract with the summoner to do their bidding. So I simply canceled the contract with a contract seal, which removes any form of direct control a summoner has over any summon. Tobirama smirked as a pleased grunt escaped his throat. To know the Hiraishin and Funjutsu at such a young age and apply it in combat. It's good to know that the future of the leaf is in hands such as these. What is your name? Naruto straightened up while keeping Orochimaru in sight. Uzumaki Naruto, Naide-sama. Who taught you the Hiraishin? I learned it from my father's notes, Naide-sama. Tobirama raised an eyebrow. I see. Then he turned towards Orochimaru with a menacing expression. Both he and Hashirama started walking towards the now nervous man, cracking their knuckles. So, you're going to use us to destroy the village we built? You have some nerve, Tobirama added as well. Don't you think you can escape? We're no longer under your control. Both of them rushed at Orochimaru, who knew that there was no way he could do anything. The Kages were out of his control by a contract seal, which meant that he could not even cancel the jutsu, which left them only one option. Lower the barrier! We're leaving! Yes, Orochimaru-sama! The barrier was lower and Orochimaru turned to escape, when suddenly Naruto flashed in front of him and kicked him right in the face. He was sent stumbling back onto the roof, coming to a harsh stop. He immediately got back up, but there was no way he was able to counter what came next in time. Katon, Ryuku no Jutsu! Orochimaru had no time to mold enough chakra for a counter, so he just brought his hands forward in a cross position. He screamed his pain as the concentrated fire utterly burned his arms, even from the inside. Only when the fire stopped was he able to jump back. Only years of building up his pain tolerance allowed him to not pass out right on the roof. My arms, he mentally raged. They were burnt right to the inside, and even trying to move his little fingers sent painful jolts up his arms. and he would not be able to change his body for almost 4 months. I'll get you for this, Uzumaki Naruto. The Sannin fled the battlefield, arms and pride injured and objective failed. He had never foreseen that he would be defeated by a mere genin, much less the Hokage. The only comfort that he could take that Uzumaki Naruto was no mere genin, and even that wasn't much comforting. Down the road, Orochimaru would have to watch out for him. And there he goes, Naruto muttered as he saw Orochimaru vanish into the ground. I'm surprised that someone managed to get their hands on that jutsu, Tobirama commented. While looking at Naruto with his hands folded, he looked every bit the Hokage he was known to be. Hashirama, on the other hand, Tobirama, I told you that it wasn't a great jutsu, he said with a hand running down his face. Tobirama turned an annoyed face to his older brother. Will you be quiet, Anija? I'm trying to talk to this genin. But shut up! It was almost comical how quickly the god of shinobi could fall into depression. As soon as Tobirama asked, so politely, for his older brother to shut up, a cloud of rain appeared above Hashirama's head. Naruto chose to ignore the bickering of the brothers and went to check up on the old Hokage, who was now sitting up and watching the bickering with a nostalgic smile. Naruto couldn't think of anything to say, so he just sat down beside him. Were they always like that? Hiruzen chuckled. Always. Their antics never fail to amuse me, but that is what make them so great. Naruto tilted his head. What do you mean? Hiruzen gave a cryptic smile. You'll understand in time. Naruto huffed, muttering about an old man and their elusive ways of talking. Hiruzen chuckled and patted Naruto on his back. I have to say, you sure do live up to your title, the most unpredictable ninja of Konoha. I expected some extra weapons, or considering it was your clone who gave it to me, some really good Funjutsu traps. Boy, you almost gave me a heart attack when I saw the 100 Kage Bunshin standing like some sort of army. Naruto chuckled and rubbed his head. What can I say? I didn't know what kind of attack you would be inverted in, so I just did the first thing that came to mind. Hiruzen laughed and said, it was excellent, and worth seeing the look of bafflement on my former student's face. But seriously, Naruto, I have to commend you. You not only displayed the true characteristics of a shinobi in battle, but you were smart enough to figure out a counter to the Edo Tensei in just minutes. Well, even I couldn't. Naruto blushed a little at the praise and was about to say something when an incredulous voice interrupted their conversation. Did you say 100 shadow clones? Both of them turned to see Hashirama with a look of wonder on his face as he approached with his brother. Naruto nodded. Yes, Shodai-sama. Hashirama gave a sly look to Tobirama. That's way more than you were able to do, Tobirama. And he's still a child. Tobirama grit his teeth, restraining himself from whacking the idiot across the head. Cooling down a bit, he turned to Naruto. You said you were from the Uzumaki clan, did you not? I don't see any red hair, so the blonde must come from your father. And while I knew that the Uzumaki possessed chakra reserves large enough to best even the Senju, even the strongest Uzumaki would only make 50 at best. Naruto slowly nodded. It was a fair assessment. If it helps you any, I am the Jinchuriki of the Kaibi. Both of the previous Hokages were surprised, but not that much. That is understandable. After all, only the Uzumaki had life force and chakra strong enough to jail the demon. Tobirama amused himself, then suddenly remembering something, he turned to the aged Hokage. What are you doing holding that hat in your old age, Sarutobi? Shouldn't you have found a successor by now? Hiruzen cringed at the reminder of the death of his successor. I did, sensei, but he died shortly after taking the hat. Kibi killed him, but he was able to seal it into Naruto before he died. Hashirama finished with a frown. I don't know what to say about this. On one hand, the Yondaime did a great deed by sacrificing himself to save the village, but on the other hand, he passed a great burden onto you, Naruto. Hiruzen looked at Naruto, who frowned and thought. After a moment of thought, he said, well, he couldn't ask anyone else in Konoha to give their child if he wasn't willing to do it himself. Understanding immediately lit up in their eyes. The Yondaime was your father, wasn't he? Naruto gave a proud smile and nodded. That he was. He was also your true successor, Naide-sama. Tobirama raised an eyebrow in question. Oh? How so? Naruto exclaimed. He took your jutsu, the Hiraishin, to the levels that you wouldn't have been able to. He was known as Konoha's Yellow Flash. Hiruzen reprimanded Naruto for speaking to his sensei like that. Naruto just gave a shrug. Just stating the facts, Hokage-sama. Surprisingly, Tobirama wasn't insulted at all at Naruto's praise of his father. In fact, he chuckled. He did that. Huh. Good for him then. For I always knew that jutsu could be refined to become better. If he was able to improve it to such a level, then I hope you surpass even him as well. It was the inevitable duty of the future generation to surpass the old one. Hiruzen was smiling like it was the best day of his life. Chatting with his senseis right now felt like the old, peaceful days when he was still training under them. But as much as he enjoyed it, there was work to be done. For now, he too released the jutsu of Orochimaru, since Naruto neglected the control from him. They became nothing more than zombies in the living world. As much as I enjoyed talking with you like the old days, please tell me you have a way of releasing this jutsu, sensei. Tobirama scoffed. Of course I do. The mere fact that you doubt me is insulting. I thought of the possibility that a revised soul might escape the control of the summoner, so I created a contingency plan. Anija, follow my hand signs. Hashirama, who was gazing at his village with a sad smile, turned and nodded. With one last look, he walked back to his brother. Just before he stirred to follow the signs, he turned to Naruto and said, Naruto, in our short fight, I have seen the great potential that you hold. See to it that you don't waste it, and give a shot at the seat of the Hokage if you want to. You know, change the world, bring peace to it. That was my dream when I was Hokage. You have my full blessings. Naruto bowed deep. Thank you, Shodai-sama. Then he grinned cockily and said, and I already have my eyes on the hat, Shodai-sama. No one can snatch that position of the Rokodama from me. Hashirama laughed at the enthusiasm, while Tobirama smiled at it. Naruto reminded him just how his elder brother used to be when they were children, optimistic at every turn, but serious when needed. Good to know, Naruto. We will be watching, and we will look forward to see how you fare. Naruto brightened up like a sun on hearing that. Even though he didn't outright say it, Tobirama had given his blessings to him as well. Even Hiruzen took an opportunity to ask a question that he wanted to know the answer to for a long time. Hashirama-sensei, Tobirama-sensei, will you please tell me how you managed your paperwork when you became Hokage? His question triggered reactions that were completely astonishing. He had expected them to look a little intent about the paperwork, but instead they gave him a pitiful look, as if paperwork was the last of their problems during their reign as Hokage. You really haven't figured it out after all this time? Hashirama asked, a bit incredulous. Hope blossomed in Hiruzen. That means you know how to tackle it, sensei? Hashirama smiled as about to tell him when. Don't tell him, Anija. If he couldn't figure out on his own, then he's a failure as my student and Hokage. That had the effect of sending Hiruzen into a bout of depression that Hashirama was similar with. Hashirama flinched as he saw his student with a rain cloud over his head. Is this how it feels to see me do that? Sensei was still so cruel. Don't worry, Hokage-sama. If you want, I can tell it to you, Naruto offered. Hiruzen looked up with a gape. How do you know about it? Tobirama butted in with his usual side remark. You ought to be ashamed of yourself if you can't figure out the answer that a genin like Naruto can. Naruto chuckled sheepishly as he rubbed his head. Just as the two brothers started to hand size, Naruto remembered something he always wanted to know. Shodai-sama! Hashirama paused and looked at Naruto with raised eyebrows. Shooting a quick apologetic look to the annoyed Naidame, he said, Do you mind if I ask you a question about your Mokitan? Hashirama grinned and dropped his hands to his lips. If he was proud of speaking that subject. Sure, I can take a question before going. While your Mokitan is highly regarded throughout the shinobi world as a legendary bloodline, how is it that only you possess it and not any of your descendants? Hashirama became unusually serious all of a sudden, prompting Naruto to think that he might have overstepped his boundaries. Even Hiruzen looked a bit alarmed at how personal the question was, while Naidame was eerily calm. All of a sudden, Hashirama opened his eyes and with all seriousness, he exclaimed, I don't know. This time, Naruto really did facepalm, as Hashirama started laughing like the goof he was. Hiruzen chuckled as well, while Tobirama finally couldn't hold it anymore and whacked his brother in the head hard. "Let's go already!" With that, they finally began the hand signs, and after a total of 24 hand signs that Naruto carefully memorized for the future, the souls finally left and returned to where they belonged. "What a day," Naruto exclaimed with a big grin. He was inside and took out a notepad to write one last thing on it. He out it back to Naruto. He put it back before Naruto noticed it. Naruto turned to him and asked with a hopeful eyes, "So, do I qualify for Chunin, Gigi?" Hiruzen outright laughed at the adorable childlike look Naruto got in his eyes. It was a rare to see it nowadays. Patience is a virtue, Naruto. He could finally relax. The invasion was over and Konoha had survived. Chapter 19. The week after the invasion was as Naruto expected. Everyone became busy in cleanup duty. The damage to Konoha was considerable, so all the Genin teams were under their sensei's supervision and working alongside civilians to rebuild and restore certain areas that were hit harder than the most.
Wanted a bitch who was on the move, but you want a goddamn late. Got the one in my bed and she just wanna sleep. Fucking up all of the sheets. She only wake up to eat. Do this shit every week. Like, why you do that? Crying, you wanna be great, but sleeping until the next day. Why you do that? Got that much in the bank. We go out, she